The Unnamed Younger Brother, FNAF 4's Crying Child, the 1983 bite victim. It's funny that after 8 years since the release of FNAF 4 that we still don't have a name for this kid yet, at least not a definitive name. There's been theories of course like Norman, Chris, even random things like William Jr. Some people think maybe he's Cassidy or Michael, but the most popular theory right now is that his name is Evan, which many people call him. In my FNAF timeline I referred to him as that for the narrative section so that I could just avoid calling him the bite victim the whole time, but calling him the bite victim or the crying child are really the only objective things we can call him. The name Evan isn't even that likely to be his real name as the code wasn't incredibly strong. However, the FNAF movie seems to have given us an answer. Garrett is the name of a young boy in the movie, which we know from the casting details, but before it was even announced that there would be a character named Garrett, somebody claimed that Garrett would be the name of Mike's younger brother in the movie. Considering this was before the name Garrett was even announced for the movie, it's pretty safe to trust that this is correct. And the actor for young Mike also called the actor for Garrett his little bro. But who knows if this is his name in the games. It probably is, but we should probably just stick to calling him the bite victim or the crying child. The Bite of 83, while not the first event of the FNAF story, was one of the earlier events, and it was a huge turning point for the series. It's really interesting to see the effect that it had on Michael, but what about the effect that it had on the bite victim? To figure that out, let's backtrack a little bit to before the events of the Bite of 83. This video will be going over the characterization of the bite victim according to my FNAF timeline, so if you get lost at any point in the video as to why I say certain things, be sure to check out the timeline. It absolutely may not be entirely correct, but this is basically what the character is like if the theory is to be believed. Essentially what I'll be doing is explaining the entire timeline, but from his perspective only. The bite victim lost his mother, which was a big turning point in his life due to the impact it had on his dad, who seemed to be going a little bit crazy. But the bite victim himself didn't really get it because he was only about 6 years old. William's business partner Henry had a daughter named Charlotte, and Charlotte was the bite victim's best friend. However, in the aftermath of William's wife's death, he essentially became an alcoholic and killed Charlotte, which led to a cascade of paranormal events, including the creation of Shadow Freddy. On the night of Charlotte's death, Shadow Freddy visited the bite victim at his window. The bite victim was a really big fan of the Fredbear characters, so mistaking Shadow Freddy for Fredbear since he was in the shadows, he follows him, but Shadow Freddy leads him to the body of Charlotte, dead. The bite victim's life was really going downhill, but not only did he lose his best friend, he was led to her dead body by what he thought was his favorite character. He was absolutely traumatized. He's then used as an experiment by William, who traps him in a room at night with what he perceived as nightmarish iterations of the animatronics, which just amplified his terror more and more. While he still loved the characters having a full set of plushies, he was terrified of the actual animatronics and stayed away from them at all costs. His Fredbear plushie begins talking to him, but he was too young to understand how this was working. In the lead up to his 7th birthday, he was bullied by his older brother, made fun of by some of the kids around, some of whom could potentially have been the kids killed by William later on, and on his birthday he is killed by his older brother by accident. Following his death, he pushes through nightmares of the Shadow Freddy he saw out his window, but more monstrous, taunting him with the sounds of the ambulance that brought him to the hospital. But he pushed through, and eventually he found himself in a void with the plushies he saw as his friends. The leader of the bunch, the Fredbear plushie, his favorite one and the one he trusted the most, told him that he would put him back together. The entity represented by the Fredbear plushie, however, was the spirit of his best friend Charlotte. She builds him the happy birthday party that he could have had, but he had to put the pieces together of his happiest day himself. The only problem was that he couldn't leave without closure. He had to get revenge on Michael for killing him. Time passes, the bite victim is friends with the kids who are killed afterwards, and now Charlotte won't leave without them, and the bite victim wouldn't leave without them and Charlotte either. The missing kids couldn't leave without their killer disappearing, and he was dedicated to becoming immortal, meaning it would be quite a while before the spirits would all be set free. The bite victim finds his brother at some of the locations and tries to get his revenge, but doesn't. Eventually he realizes that Michael was actually apologetic. He killed him by accident, and now he was trying to make up for it. It seems that the bite victim was able to recognize this and kind of forgave Michael, but at the same time, he was stuck in the Golden Freddy animatronic, which was eventually used as a part of the Funtime animatronics. The bite victim's spirit was essentially melded together with the missing kids minus Cassidy, and their spirits were all broken up into pieces and now inhabited animatronics William Afton, the bite victim's father and the missing kid's killer, created for the intention of capturing and killing more kids. The kids were being forced to do to other children what Afton did to them, only they didn't realize that they were killing kids. They thought they were just making new friends. The bite victim was forced along with the rest, being forced to unwittingly murder children until eventually all the spirits, including Elizabeth Afton and the circus baby animatronic, band together to escape, injecting Remnant into Michael Afton, who was still trying to help his father, whom he thought was a good man, only now realizing the monster that he was. The Remnant inside Michael included all the missing kids as well as the bite victim, and Michael ends up helping all of them put the pieces of their spirits back together. When the being now known as Ennard exited Michael's body, all the missing kids stayed in Ennard while the bite victim stayed attached to Michael. Michael tries to find and stop William, but years go by to no avail, and Michael gives up. The bite victim completely understands this. Michael tried, but he couldn't stop William, so he understands him giving up. But eventually, when Fazbear's Fright opens, Michael still decides to stay away, and the bite victim worries that he doesn't understand the severity of the situation. So in response to Michael's lack of motivation to go to Fazbear's Fright, he shows Michael the nightmares that the bite victim had to go through, and shows him that it's still not over. The situation is still very severe, and essentially, Michael has to suck it up, and he does. Eventually, this leads to FNAF 3 and 6, the bite victim puts the pieces of Happiest Day together, and it'll happen at some point, but not yet. And that's essentially where the main part of his story ends. If I'm right about all this, the bite victim's characterization is really well done. Early in the timeline, he just wants revenge on Michael until he realizes it was just an accident that he died. The bite victim is such a great character because he's pure-hearted. He's able to forgive Michael, and he dedicates his time as a spirit to trying to regain the party he lost and bring his friends along with him. He and Charlotte just want to free the souls of all the dead kids. The bite victim is just a pure-hearted friend, a forgiving brother, and a great character all around. I feel like the FNAF 4 gameplay being torture from the bite victim was kind of a stretch back when I used to think that, because it's not really torture, it's a memory that the bite victim shows to Michael to help him become the hero that he needs to be. It's not like Michael's a saint. By no means is he a saint. After all, he killed his brother and helped William achieve his goals, but none of that was intentional. It was an accident that he killed his brother. He didn't know William was the bad guy. Does that make it okay? No, absolutely not, but it's amazing characterization for him to try and make up for it. But he's only human, and he does lose sight of his goal, but it's the brother he killed who got him back on track. The bite victim didn't give Michael the nightmares in a malicious way, but rather to light the spark inside Michael that had been dying to be lit since Sister Location. Is Michael a hero? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how you look at it. But whether he is a hero or not, he is definitely, at the very least, the closest thing to a hero that we have in FNAF. But it's easy to forget that if it weren't for the bite victim, that would have never been the case.